I'm Joan, and this is my husband Tony, and that's a butter churn. So I've been making a lot of butter lately, but today Tony's going to make butter, and I'm going to talk about why I've been making so much butter. So my family's originally from Iowa. When I was in third grade, we moved to Milwaukee, but we would go back and forth a lot to Iowa. And visit my grandparents and my aunts and uncles and cousins, and sometimes we would stop at this place called the Amana Colonies, which was like these towns settled by these Amish-like people. They weren't Amish, but they were Amish-ish. Their whole thing was self-sufficiency. Their motto was, if we can't make it, we don't need it. And I liked stopping there for lunch because they made really, really good pies. Anyway, even though I haven't lived in Iowa since I was little, I still consider myself sort of an Iowa farm girl. After college, I moved to New York to be an actress. And in acting school, I was a really, really good actress. But after acting school, I was a really bad actress because I was bad at auditioning. When I would get so nervous that I would start to cry in the audition. Which is bad because, unless you're auditioning for a role that requires crying, but I wasn't. I was auditioning for like girl at lens crafters trying on glasses. And the role that broke me, that made me quit acting forever, was this audition I had for a butter commercial. So here's what happened. I got a call from a casting director saying there was a part that he thought was perfect for me. A butter company needed a butter spokesperson. Now, I look like a girl who eats butter. I am a girl who eats butter. And in real life, I will talk about butter in such a way that you will want to eat butter. Also, I look wholesome. I have freckles. And at the time, in my 20s, I had long brown hair that I would sometimes put in braids. And sometimes I would put those braids on top of my head, a la Swiss Miss. So I had a feeling like this was my break. This was my part. And getting this butter commercial was gonna pay me thousands and thousands of dollars, and it was gonna solve all my problems. And here's the thing, you guys, I had a lot of problems. Most of them having to do with having no money and having bad credit and having, creditors call me all the time. You know that thing when you're in a store, say the Gap, and you're at the counter and the clerk goes, if you open a charge card today, you can save 20%. And you go, yeah, I want to save 20%. And then she plugs your information in the computer and then she goes, oh, oops, you were denied. And she says it really loud and everybody in line behind can hear it, and you go, oh, no problem. You know what? Actually, I don't need this striped cardigan. And you run out of the store and you end up on the street going, how did this become my life? Do you know that feeling? Yeah, so that feeling was going to go away if I got this butter commercial, because I was going to be able to pay everybody back and I would feel good about myself again. Plus, I imagined myself being butter girl, People would see me on the street and they'd go, hey, butter girl, and I'd go, hi. So you can see there was a lot riding on this butter audition. It felt like my whole future hung in the balance. So the night before the audition, the casting director sent me the sides, which are the lines I was going to have to say in the audition, and I practiced them in the bathroom mirror like this. Hey, you guys, have you tried this butter? It tastes so buttery. What? That was good. No, seriously, I am telling you, by the time I continue churning. By the time I got to the audition, I had it down, and I looked great. I had braided my hair, and I had found in my closet this dress that was sort of like a gingham jumper. I looked like an Iowa farm girl, and I walked into that audition, and I got into the room, and I looked at the 10 people, the ad executives, and they were dressed in suits, and they had serious faces, and I froze. all of my confidence went out the window, and I suddenly became aware that I was wearing braids, and I was wearing a gingham jumper. Who has a gingham jumper? And I looked at my hands, and they suddenly weren't behaving like human hands. They were like a marionette. And my face, as I started to do the audition, was doing these wild, expressive things. And at one point, one of the guys goes, "Excuse me, could you stop doing that thing with your eyebrows?" And I go, "Oh, what am I doing with my eyebrows?" And he said, you're moving them like a silent movie actress." So I said, "Oh God, yes, sorry. Hey, can I go again?" And they said, "Sure." And I took a deep cleansing breath. But instead of relaxing me, it made me realize I had already blown it. I started to realize that I wasn't going to get the butter commercial and get the thousands of dollars that were going to solve all my problems. I wasn't going to be Butter Girl. And when I opened my mouth to speak, instead of words coming out, I started to cry. And it was as horrifying to me as it was to the 10 people watching me. I didn't want to cry. I hadn't planned it, and now I couldn't stop it. And the crying became sobs, deep, guttural sobs, as though a lifetime of pain was being vomited out in that room. And I don't remember much of what happened. At some point, somebody must have ushered me out. And the next thing I remember, I was out on the street in a gingham dress and braids with the glaring sunlight going, "What just happened? And how is this my life?" So, yeah, I was a bad actress. Oh, Joan, I think it's butter. Ooh, it's butter. Could you rinse it and salt it? Thank you. So yeah, my 20s were bad. I mean, I was flinging myself from one thing to another, trying to be an actress, trying to be an artist, trying to be something. And it was hard. It was really hard. I wouldn't relive a day of my 20s. Maybe 45 minutes here or there, but all of the uncertainty about my life and making a living and what's going to happen to me, I didn't have any skills. I had no plan B. I can't even type. You know, I'm a writer now, and I can't type. Like, I run television shows, and this is how I type. 2 fingers, like plunkety plunk, crazy, crazy typing. That's how I type, right, Tony? He'll tell you. So I had no marketable skills. I was in my 20s, and I was depressed. And I often imagined moving back to Iowa and being a farmer, you know? Because the life I was living in New York felt useless. Like, it didn't feel like a life worth living, and living a life worth living is the only way to live a life. But what's a life worth living? Seriously, I want to know. I wanted to know then, and I want to know now, because I'm filled with fear again and uncertainty. I'm depressed. This is all so depressing. We're home, and we don't know when we're going to go back to work. We feel useless and underutilized. We feel sluggish. I feel sluggish. And I spent my 20s feeling sluggish. I didn't know what to do to fill my days while I was waiting to be me. There was one time where I spent an entire day plucking the hairs from my legs one by one, lining them up, and then sucking him up with a dustbuster. That is a true story. He will tell you that's a true story, right, Tony? True story. So many of us have lost our jobs now, sort of. I mean, I've lost my job, sort of. What I mean is I write television, and there's no television happening. So I've lost my job, sort of. We've lost our jobs, sort of. And we don't know what's gonna happen to us. I don't know. But here's what I do know. I'm not the same person as I was in my 20s. For one thing, I have money in the bank. I have no money coming in, but I can get by for a while, you know, and eventually I'll get another job, and eventually it's all gonna be okay, right? I mean, this is the tape that's going through my head at night when I'm laying alone in bed, all afraid. So I'm not the same person as I was when I was standing outside the Gap, having been denied credit. But here's the thing. I feel like the same person. you know? I feel scared and helpless. And so I was trying to remember how I got from there to here. Like, how did I deal with all the uncertainty then? Ooh, that looks good. And then I remembered. I decided I was gonna be a pie baker, like Mrs. Fields, but with pies. You know how the story goes that Mrs. Fields was this woman who made these really great chocolate chip cookies, and she'd go out and bring them places, and people would go like, oh my God, Mrs. Fields, your chocolate chip cookies are so great, you should sell them. Well, when I was in my 20s, you know, after I was a bad actress, before I was a writer who can't type, I decided I was gonna be a pie baker. I was gonna start an empire like Mrs. Fields, but with pies. Because here's one thing you should know. An Iowa farm girl knows how to make a really good apple pie. Right, Tony? I make a really good apple pie. I do. That is one thing I can do. So I started making pies and bringing them around to restaurants to try to sell them. And I didn't sell any. And no one bought them. But it gave me time, you know? The making of the pies felt good. It gave me time to recover from being a bad actress and to figure out what I was gonna do next and how I wanted my life to be. And it felt really good to make something and to give it to people and to have them like it. You know, it felt good to do something real. Baking is real. And so when this quarantine happened, I decided I was gonna bake. So I went to the store and there was no butter. And so I thought, you know, I'm self-sufficient, I'm from Iowa, so I am gonna make my own butter. I mean, how hard can it be? And it turns out it's not that hard at all. So I started making butter. Like, I spent whole days making butter, and while I was making butter, I'm churning butter, and I'm thinking, you know what, I could do this. I could have a butter empire. I could be like the Paul Newman of butter. Now, here's the thing, you guys. I know I'm not gonna be the Paul Newman of butter, but it feels good to make something, and it's giving me time to get from here to there, right? And we'll all get there. This will end. We'll get to the other side of this, and maybe it won't look the same. Like, maybe our lives won't look the same. Maybe they'll be different than we thought they were gonna be, but maybe that'll be okay. You know, like maybe eventually we'll see that we can survive this. Like, I didn't think I could survive being a bad actress. You know, I thought that I had to become Butter Girl to solve all my problems, but I didn't become her. I became someone else. And it's the becoming that's gonna save us. You know, the act of doing and making and becoming will save us. At least that's what I think. Oh my God. You guys, have you tried this butter? It's so buttery.